The bus coughed out smoke and left Liyara on the red clay road that ribboned into Ngabo village. Roosters stuttered from yards, cassava leaves shimmered after dawn rain, and the smell of wood smoke hung low. She tightened the scarf around her braids, clutching a worn satchel with her father's old ledger wrapped inside. 3 months since he died. 3 months since her stepmother, Madame Nzile, sent a message. Your city job is not our concern. Coben is my child now. At the homestead, the courtyard drum, the one her father used to summon family, sat dark and cracked. Madame Nzale emerged in a cobalt wrapper, gold bangles chiming like tiny warnings. You arrive late, she said. Your brother is busy with men's work. Men's work or your work? Liyara asked. From the doorway, Coben appeared, shoulders broader than she remembered, eyes tired. He embraced her quickly, then stepped back under his stepmother's gaze. We have debts, Madame Nzale said. Your father owed the miller. Until it's cleared, Coben works with Buana Ruga's charcoal kilns. Liyara felt the ledger's weight through the satchel, pages of accounts her father kept by hand. I want to see the debt, she said softly. Ask the wind, Madame Nzila replied. The papers burned with him. Neighbors paused by the fence of woven sticks, pretending to sip tea while listening. A stray goat nudged a tin basin. Liyara breathed slow. She hadn't come to argue, she had come to count. Coben's hands were blackened by charcoal dust as he stacked sacks on a bicycle cart beside the river. Buana Ruga's men laughed too loudly, the way men laugh when something isn't right. Their boss signed a chit with a rubber stamp that never seemed to dry. Your sweat pays your late father's shame, he sneered. Liyara arrived with water and a stiff smile. Drink, she said to Coben. To Ruga, she added, show me the debt ledger. He waved the stamp in the air. My books are private. Debts are only real if they can be counted, she said. Coben's eyes flicked to her satchel. He knew that look. She'd used it on school bursars, bus conductors, anyone who tried to shorten what was due. On the walk back, Coben hissed, don't fight her. Madame Nzele will make it worse. She is not a storm, Liyara said. She is a person. People can be faced. They passed the miller's compound, its wheel still. The miller, a quiet man named Seifu, sat in the shade with a radio. When he saw them, he turned the volume down and stood politely. Liyara bowed. Did my father owe you? Seifu rubbed his beard. He owed 2 bags of maize last season, but he paid before the harvest festival. He glanced toward Ruga's yard upriver and lowered his voice. Others like noise. I prefer receipts. A mosquito whined. Somewhere, a baby cried. Liyara felt the ledger pulse like a heartbeat in her bag. If Seifu had receipts, someone else was forging shadows. Night crawled over Ngabo. In the hut, Liyara lit a paraffin lamp and spread her father's ledger across the mat. The pages smelled of ink and rain. Each line was neat. Seed advances, school fees, the drum repair that never happened. Coben sat cross-legged, chin in hands. She says father signed papers, he whispered. And yet her proof burns every time someone asks to see it, Liyara said. Tell me, who visits when I'm gone? Ruga. And that man with a scar on his ear, Coben answered. They talk in the back near the granary. A rustle snapped from outside. The lamp flame trembled. Liyara closed the ledger and slid it under her mat. She lifted the pestle from the corner like a staff. The door cloth shifted. A shadow, then silence. Is someone there? She called. No answer. Only the scrape of a foot and a wheezing breath. Liyara stepped into the courtyard. Moonlight silvered the cassava leaves. She caught a glimpse of the scarred ear as a figure slipped behind the granary. Coben grabbed her wrist. Leave it, he begged. We don't leave wolves in the yard, she said, gripping the pestle tighter. But the night kept its secrets. By morning, a chicken lay headless near the fence, someone's message pinned to the ground with a knife blade. Liyara pulled the blade free, wiped it on her wrapper, and sank it into the mud by their doorstep like a flag. If they want fear, let them come negotiate for it, she murmured. The weekly market felt like a breathing thing. Goats tugging at frayed ropes, pyramids of tomatoes glowing, tin cups chiming against basins. Liyara wove through the crowd, the knife wrapped in a cloth inside her basket. She found Elder Mako by the tobacco stall, his walking stick carved with birds. Child, he said, eyes sharp. Back to fight wind? To fight paper, she answered. Someone claims my father's debt with forged stamps. She showed the wrapped knife. And there are darker signatures. Mako nodded slowly. The council can listen, but Ruga feeds their sons with casual work. That's why we must bring ears from outside, she said, glancing at the district nurse buying soap. The nurse, a quiet woman named Penda, listened as Liyara explained Coben's charcoaling and the night visitor. Penda's jaw tightened. Charcoal kilns take lungs before they take debts. I'll speak of health risks. Rumors moved faster than wind. By noon, Madame Nzelle swept into the market like a storm in a fashionable wrapper. Look at our city sister, she called, voice honeyed and loud, counting things that are not hers to count. Women paused, hands midair over produce. Liyara kept her voice even. If a debt is real, let's read it. Nzele's smile thinned. The council meets at sunset. At sunset, the sky hardened into pewter. Liyara touched the ledger through her satchel and felt something fragile and fierce take root. Not certainty, but a plan. The council sat on carved stools beneath the old neem tree. Boys leaned on bicycles at the edge of the circle. Women watched from a distance, arms folded tight. Elder Mako opened the floor. Madame Nzel stepped forward, voice smooth. This girl disrespects her father's house and the men who rescued us from debt. Liyara bowed slightly. Rescue has receipts. She placed her father's ledger on the mat. These are his accounts, written in his hand. Mill debts cleared. School fees for Koban paid until December. Where is the debt, Ruga claims? Ruga sniffed. Our papers burned in the kitchen fire when your stepmother cooked for mourners. Strange, Liyara said. The pot survived. The chairs survived. Only your papers melted. Soft laughter rippled. Ruga reddened. Penda, the nurse, spoke about kiln cough and collapsed chests. Seifu, the miller, produced a dog-eared receipt. Paid in maize, it read, with his thumbprint and date. Elder Mako stroked his beard. Nzele, until Ruga's papers reappear. Koban returns home. No more kilns. Madame Nzele's bangles chimed. The girl poisons minds. Let the drum decide, she snapped, pointing to the silent family drum in Liyara's courtyard. If her father's drum calls her, she may lead. Murmurs swelled. The drum had no magic, but it had meaning. At dawn, Mako declared. We go. Liyara swallowed. Dawn would either end this or set it ablaze. Dawn bleached the horizon. Villagers gathered in Liyara's courtyard, breath frosting faintly in the cool. Elder Mako touched the cracked drum, listening more than tapping. A drum remembers the hands that loved it, he said. He gestured to Liyara. She knelt, laid her palm on the drumhead, and struck twice. The sound was dull, then blooming, as if the wood exhaled a long-held breath. Birds startled from the pawpaw tree. Koban's eyes shone. Madame Nzele snorted. Tricks. It's age, Liyara said. Cracks tighten with night temperature. She struck again, softer. The courtyard filled with a low, steady pulse. Neighbors glanced at each other, surprised not by magic, but by memory. This was how her father called them to share news and make decisions. Liyara stood. Let the drum call witnesses, receipts, not rumors. She lifted her father's ledger so the sun caught its edges. And let it call for Koban's chance to breathe. The council murmured, weighing pride and pragmatism. Finally, Elder Mako raised his stick. The drum has spoken enough. Koban stays with his sister. Ruga will bring proof or silence. Ruga's jaw clenched. Madame Nzele's smile returned, thin as thread. We will bring something, she said, voice silky. As the crowd dispersed, a boy slipped Liyara a folded note. They come tonight? Hide your book. Liyara tucked the ledger under her blouse and felt its corners press her ribs like armor. The night came heavy and windless. Liyara moved the ledger into a calabash of dried beans, covered it with a cloth, and slid it under the bed. She placed a pot of water near the doorway, her father's old trick for smoke. Koban paced. We should go to Sefu's house. If we run once, we run forever, she said. We stand. Near midnight, a hiss, then a ribbon of smoke slid under the door. Liyara kicked the pot, splashing water across the threshold. A second later, the roof thatch crackled. She grabbed a wet cloth, flung it onto the growing ember, and beat at it with a broom. Outside, footsteps scattered. She burst into the yard with a pestle, shouting, Neighbors! Windows flicked alive. Men ran with buckets. Women formed a line. The ember died under a tide of muddy water. Elder Mako arrived, breathless, with two youths who'd been sleeping by the goat pen. We saw a man run towards Ruga's place, a youth said, scarred ear. Madame Nzel stepped into the lantern light, perfectly composed in a new wrapper. So convenient, she murmured. Always danger when this girl is seeking attention. Liyara stared at her, chest heaving. You invited wolves. Nzele tilted her head. I invite order. Koban stood beside his sister, wet and shaking but unburned. Around them, the village watched, their silence louder than any drum. Morning brought the smell of wet ash and stubborn hope. Liyara walked Koban to the school gate, passing jacaranda blossoms scattered like confetti. The head teacher, Madame Kago, met them with a ledger of her own. Term fees? She asked gently. Paid till December, Liyara said, showing her father's line in the book. Madame Kago nodded and clapped Koban's shoulder. Into class, she said. Outside the gate, Ruga waited with the scar-eared man. School is a luxury for debtors, Ruga said. He reached for Koban's shirt, but Liyara stepped between them. Touch him again, she said softly, and I will read your stamp in front of the district officer. Other parents gathered, whispers darting like swallows. The nurse Penda crossed the road. Anything I should report? She asked conversationally, eyes on Ruga. He dropped his hand. Liyara walked away slowly, not giving him her back until Koban disappeared into the classroom. When she reached the mango tree, she sat and allowed her hands to shake. Then she opened her phone, an old device with a cracked screen, and typed a message to the district office. Community debt dispute, possible forgery, request appointment. By evening, a reply pinged. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. The drum in her chest beat steady. The matatu to the district office rattled like a box of nails. Liyara sat by the window, gripping a folder. Her father's ledger, Sefu's receipt, notes from Penda on kiln injuries. Beside her, Elder Mako hummed an old tune and carried his carved stick like a passport. Officials respect age and evidence, he said. We bring both. Town spat them onto a paved street lined with phone shops, a bank, and posters for a political rally. The district officer, Mr. Tembo, wore spectacles that made his eyes look honest. He listened, flipping through Liyara's pages. Forged stamps are common, he sighed, but proof is often slippery. Then we bring the stamp, Liyara said. Ruga waves it daily. Tembo nodded. Tomorrow we visit him with police. Outside, Liyara bought 2 mandazi and shared them with Mako on a shaded bench. He watched her chew like a boxer measuring distance. You fight quiet, he said. I learned from my father, she replied. He counted, not shouted. Back at the matatu, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Stop or we make the boy disappear from the road. Her throat tightened. She showed Mako. He read, then folded his hands. Fear is a currency, he said. Don't spend it. She saved the number and sent it to Tembo with a brief note. The law moved slowly, but this time, it was moving. Mr. Tembo arrived in Ngabo with 2 officers just as the sun lifted. Ruga stood outside his shed pretending surprise. Officers? What honor? Tembo held out a hand. Your debt records. Your stamp. Ruga's jaw worked. He produced a stamp and ink pad, then a battered notebook. Tembo compared the impressions to marks on villagers' scraps. The ink bled differently. The dates skipped weeks that never existed. This is not an official registrar stamp, Tembo said softly. It's a toy you use to frighten people. The scar-eared man shifted, then bolted. An officer gave chase, returning with the man gasping. In his pocket, a list of names and fees, including Kobin. Madame Enzel appeared at the edge of the crowd, eyes flicking to Ruga, then to Liyara. I only wanted order, she said, voice thin. Order is not fear, Liyara answered. Tembo announced that all collections were suspended pending charges. Ruga spat onto the dust and cursed. Fine, keep your boy. But the house is still mine through marriage. Silence punched the air. Liyara turned to Elder Mako. Is that true? Mako's face folded into a frown. The land titles say otherwise if we can find them. Madame Enzel smiled again. A mask slipped back on. Then find them, she said, already turning away. The sun refused to move as Liyara and Kobin tore through trunks in the storeroom. Mouse-chewed papers, a broken radio, the cloth from their mother's wedding. Everything but land titles. Outside, Madame Enzel sang as she pounded yam, each thud a metronome of mockery. Kobin wiped sweat. Maybe they never existed. They existed, Liyara said. Father took me to the registrar when I turned 18. He said, if I'm not here, you know where the ground stands. They searched the granary, then the rafters. A board wobbled. Liyara climbed the stool, pried the board, and reached into the dark. Her fingers brushed cloth, then paper. She pulled down a sealed envelope. Title, Adeyemi Homestead. A shadow crossed the doorway. Madame Enzel stood there, face blank. You should be careful on stools, she said. Falls break necks. Liyara slid the envelope into her blouse. So do lies. Nzeli's lips parted, then pressed into a line. She stepped aside. Elder Mako will be wanting tea, she said to no one, and left. Kobin exhaled, dizzy with relief. We have it. Not yet, Liyara whispered. We only touched it. Now we must protect it. Word spread faster than legs. Liyara decided to move the title and ledger to the district bank overnight. She and Kobin slipped onto the footpath as frogs started their orchestra. Crickets wrote a steady line of sound. Halfway to the bridge, a motorbike's headlamp cut through bush. Scar-Ear roared beside them, hand outstretched. Kobin shoved Liyara into the reeds and the bike skidded, rider cursing. Liyara scrambled up the bank, clutching her satchel. The motorbike sputtered. Scar-Ear revved again. From the bridge, a whistle pierced. The youth watch Mako had organized after the arson. 3 boys with torches ran toward them. Scar-Ear turned, clipped a stone, and spilled. He scrambled up, limping into the dark. Kobin's chest heaved. You okay? Liyara nodded, throat raw. Keep moving. They reached the bank's night deposit box as the guard yawned. Liyara slid the envelope and ledger into a sealed pouch, watched it disappear into the chute, and felt something finally leave her shoulders. Now it's not just our word, she said. On the walk back, the sky lifted. A thin edge of morning light touched the river like a promise kept. By midday, the bank manager arrived with Mr. Tembo and a copy of the deed. In the courtyard, villagers gathered again, faces tight with curiosity. The manager cleared his throat. Adeyemi Homestead, titled to Afolabi Adeyemi, and, upon his death, to Liyara Adeyemi, as trustee for Kobin Adeyemi, until his 25th year. Murmurs rolled like surf. Madame Enzele stood very still. For a heartbeat, grief cracked her composure. Then she lifted her chin. And where do I live? In the house, Liyara said quietly, surprising many. As long as Coben's safety and schooling are not threatened, those are the terms I set. Ruga, hand bandaged from his fall, snorted. Mercy from a girl. Terms are not mercy, Liyara replied. They are boundaries. Tembo finished. Charges would proceed against Ruga and Scar Ear for fraud and arson attempt. The crowd shifted, the silent calculus of a village adjusting to new gravity. Elder Mako tapped the drum once. Soft, ceremonial. Counted and settled, he intoned. Coben's shoulders dropped. He looked at his sister like a man seeing a horizon he thought was closed. Thank you, he whispered. Liyara squeezed his hand. Now we build. That evening, as bats stitched the dusk, Madame Nzele knocked on Liyara's door. No bangles, no rapper flair, just a tired woman. I did what I knew, she said, not quite apologizing. A widow with no sons is soft meat here. You had a son, Liyara said. You tried to use him as armor. Nzele's eyes flickered. I was afraid the house would push me out as the village watched. Liyara poured tea and sat on the threshold. Then let's write what fear swallowed. She took out paper. You will not obstruct Coben's schooling. You will not consult Ruga again. You will share custody decisions with me. You may stay as family if you sign and keep this. The older woman studied the paper, then the courtyard, then Liyara's face. And if I don't, then the deed is the law, Liyara said, not unkind. And I will ask the council for supervised distance. Silence stretched. Finally, Nzele took the pen. Her hand shook as she signed. When she looked up, water stood in her eyes. I loved your father, she said, throat rough. I didn't know how to love what he left. We will learn, Liyara said, but the learning will have rules. Weeks later, the drum sounded at sunrise. One deep call. Not for crisis, but for announcement. Liyara stood in the yard with Coben and Madame Nzele. The youth watch disbanded. The kiln coughs lessened as Ruga's sight stayed cold. The school gate opened each morning to Coben's grin. Liyara faced the neighbors. We are starting a counting circle. A cooperative for receipts, fair loans, and proof. Bring your papers. We'll store copies at the district bank. Penda raised a hand to offer health talks. Sefu volunteered a locked metal box. Elder Mako pledged his stick and time. Coben stepped forward, voice steady. I'll help after classes. I want to learn land laws. Liyara smiled. By the time you are 25, you will teach them. Madame Nzele stood a pace behind, hands folded. When the meeting ended, she whispered, Thank you for not throwing me away. We keep useful things, Liyara said, even when they once cut. Later, she sat alone beside the drum. The ledger rested on her knees. Not armor anymore, but seed. In the distance, the river caught the light, and the village, stubborn, complicated, beloved, exhaled. The fight had carved her. The counting had rebuilt her. And the drum, choosing no magic and every memory, kept time for them all.